Imagine being trapped between the love of your life and the relentless grip of a mother who sacrificed everything for you. What would you choose? Freedom or family loyalty? This is the story of a man who had it all: success, wealth, and the perfect partner, only to lose everything when love and loyalty collide in the most painful way. Stay tuned, because this story has a twist that will leave you questioning the true cost of devotion. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because you won't want to miss this. In the heart of Jamaica, under the sweltering sun, and amidst the vibrant bustle of Kingston, a boy named Marcus was born into humble beginnings. He was the only son of Miss Evelyn, a woman who was known throughout her neighborhood as strong, determined, and unwavering in her devotion to her children. Her entire world revolved around her two children, Marcus and his younger sister, Kathy. Miss Evelyn wasn't just any mother. She was a pillar of strength in the face of adversity. Life hadn't been kind to her. She had been abandoned by her husband when Marcus was just a toddler, and Kathy was barely walking. Left to fend for herself and her children, Miss Evelyn knew that her only mission was to ensure her children didn't suffer the same fate as she did. The thought of her children growing up without a future haunted her, so she took on any job she could find to make sure there was food on the table. She worked as a cleaner in the wealthy homes of Kingston, scrubbing floors, doing laundry, and cooking meals for families who looked at her without seeing her struggle. She would rise before dawn and wouldn't return home until well into the night, often with swollen feet and aching hands. But no matter how tired she was, she always made time to check on her children's schoolwork, making sure they understood the importance of education. Marcus, growing up, was aware of the sacrifices his mother made. From a young age, he took it upon himself to help ease her burden where he could. While his friends played in the streets, Marcus would stay home with Kathy, reading to her, helping her with homework, and doing household chores. He often watched his mother return from work with sweat streaming down her face, but never once did she complain. In his young mind, Marcus knew he owed his mother everything, and from that moment, a bond formed between them that would shape his entire life. As Marcus grew, so did his ambitions. From an early age, he excelled in school, showing a keen intellect and a knack for business. His teachers often remarked on his determination, saying that it wasn't just intelligence that set Marcus apart, but his relentless drive to succeed. And while other boys his age dreamed of becoming musicians or athletes, Marcus had a different vision for his future. He wanted to own something tangible, something that could take him and his family out of poverty for good. Kathy, on the other hand, was softer in nature. Where Marcus was determined and focused, Kathy was gentle and kind, content to follow her brother's lead. She loved her family with all her heart, and though she didn't have the same academic brilliance as Marcus, she supported him in every way she could. She adored him and believed that he was destined for greatness. Miss Evelyn never let her children forget the struggle it took to get them where they were. She would often sit Marcus down at the end of a long day and remind him of the hardship she faced. "Me na want unu fi forget where me a come from," she would say, her voice thick with emotion. "All de blood, sweat, and tears me put into fi mek sure you reach university, me do it fi unu future." Marcus would always nod, taking his mother's words to heart. He knew that everything he achieved was because of her sacrifices, and so, when he finally graduated from university, it was the proudest moment of both his and Miss Evelyn's life. With a degree in business management and a head full of dreams, Marcus was ready to take on the world. But even as he began to climb the ladder of success, there was a shadow that loomed over him, the constant reminder from his mother of the debt he owed her for her suffering. Marcus started small. He began a shoe business, working tirelessly to build it from the ground up. In the beginning, it was just a small workshop, but with time, His business grew. He poured every ounce of energy he had into making his dream a reality. Soon, his shoe factory became one of the largest in Kingston, providing jobs to hundreds of local workers. His name became synonymous with quality and craftsmanship, and with his newfound wealth, he was finally able to provide for his mother and sister in ways he had only ever dreamed of. Miss Evelyn and Kathy moved into a beautiful house, and for a while, it seemed like all their struggles had paid off. But despite his success, something was missing in Marcus's life love. He had spent so many years focused on his career and providing for his family that he had never taken the time to pursue a meaningful relationship. Miss Evelyn, however, was quick to point out that he didn't need to look for love outside. "The woman dem we come ya fia no love ya, dem just want your money. Me now go mek no woman come take we me son from me. Me suffer fi too long fi mek dem reap we dem na sow," she would say whenever she saw Marcus showing interest in a woman. And just like that, the bond that had once been a source of strength for Marcus began to strangle him. Miss Evelyn's possessiveness grew stronger as Marcus's wealth increased. Every time Marcus brought a woman home, Miss Evelyn would chase her away, accusing her of being after Marcus's money. The emotional manipulation was constant, as she would remind Marcus of all the sacrifices she had made. "Me work fi ya every single day, fi make sure you eat and go school. You owe me everything." Marcus, feeling a deep sense of loyalty and guilt, couldn't bring himself to stand up to his mother. He wanted to find love, to settle down and start a family of his own. But every time he got close to someone, Miss Evelyn would interfere, driving them away with her sharp words and accusations. Kathy, who had always been the peacekeeper in the family, tried to mediate between them, but Miss Evelyn's emotional blackmail soon worked its way into Kathy's heart as well. Slowly, she began siding with their mother. As Marcus entered his mid-30s, the pressure to settle down intensified. Miss Evelyn constantly reminded him of her desire for grandchildren. But whenever Marcus tried to introduce her to a potential partner, Miss Evelyn would find fault, dismissing the woman as unworthy. "Dem na good enough for ya, Marcus," she would say, shaking her head. "Me know the kind of woman you need. Me will find one for ya." And find one she did. Miss Evelyn brought a young woman named Chantel into Marcus's life. Chantel came from a good family, and Miss Evelyn believed she was the perfect match for Marcus. But Marcus wasn't interested. He found Chantel superficial, more interested in his money than in him as a person. But Miss Evelyn wouldn't let it go. She pressured Marcus, reminding him that he needed to give her grandchildren, and Chantel was the perfect woman to do so. Despite his reservations, Marcus tried to appease his mother, but his heart wasn't in it. He longed for someone who truly loved him for who he was, not for his wealth. That person came into his life unexpectedly, Sophia. Sophia was different from the other women Marcus had met. She came from a wealthy family herself and didn't need Marcus's money. She was independent, intelligent, and kind, and Marcus quickly fell in love with her. They began a relationship, and for the first time in his life, Marcus felt truly happy. But Miss Evelyn wasn't pleased. She saw Sophia as a threat, someone who would take her son away from her. She became cold and hostile toward Sophia, constantly making her feel unwelcome in their home. Despite this, Sophia stood by Marcus's side, determined to make their relationship work. Over the years, Marcus and Sophia tried to start a family, but despite their efforts, they were unable to have children. The strain of not being able to give Miss Evelyn the grandchildren she so desperately wanted weighed heavily on Marcus, but it was even worse for Sophia. Miss Evelyn's constant criticism and passive-aggressive remarks about their childlessness became unbearable. One day, after another heated argument between Miss Evelyn and Sophia, Sophia fainted in the kitchen. Marcus rushed her to the hospital, where they received devastating news. Sophia had suffered a miscarriage. Neither of them had known she was pregnant. The news broke Marcus's heart, and he could see how it shattered Sophia. She withdrew from him, emotionally distant and grieving the loss in silence. Miss Evelyn, however, didn't let up. She continued to berate Sophia, blaming her for the lack of grandchildren. And when Marcus didn't stand up to his mother, Sophia began to lose faith in their marriage. The breaking point came when Miss Evelyn brought Chantel back into their lives, insisting that she could give Marcus the children Sophia couldn't. Despite his initial resistance, Marcus was emotionally exhausted. Miss Evelyn's constant manipulation and guilt-tripping had worn him down over the years, and in a moment of weakness, he gave in. He slept with Chantel in his own home, a betrayal that devastated Sophia beyond repair. She had stood by Marcus, endured Miss Evelyn's harsh words, and supported him through all the ups and downs. But this was too much. When Sophia discovered the betrayal, her heart broke completely. She couldn't believe that the man she loved, the man she had fought so hard for, had let his mother push him to such a place. It was the final blow that shattered the already fragile foundation of their marriage. Sophia, unable to cope with the betrayal, packed her bags and left Marcus. She didn't scream or yell. She simply walked out, her eyes filled with tears of sorrow rather than anger. There was nothing left for her in that home, nothing but pain and memories of a love that had been slowly torn apart by Marcus's inability to break free from his mother's control. Marcus, filled with guilt and self-loathing, tried to stop her. He begged for forgiveness, pleaded for her to stay. But Sophia had made up her mind. She couldn't stay in a marriage where she felt secondary to Miss Evelyn, and now, with Chantel in the picture, there was no going back. As she walked away, she left behind not only her home but also a part of herself that had once believed in the future they could have had together. For Marcus, life became an unbearable mix of guilt and grief. He had lost the love of his life, and no matter how much success he had achieved, it meant nothing without Sophia. His once beautiful home now felt cold and empty, and the walls that had once echoed with laughter were now silent. Meanwhile, Miss Evelyn, though she had won in pushing Sophia out of Marcus's life, couldn't see the damage she had done to her son. Her obsession with control, and her belief that she had suffered more than anyone else, blinded her to the emotional destruction she had caused. She continued to insist that Chantel was the right woman for Marcus, but Marcus could hardly look at Chantel, much less consider starting a family with her. Chantel, for her part, was happy to remain in Marcus's life, knowing that with Miss Evelyn's backing, she could secure her place. But Marcus's pain only deepened. He couldn't shake the image of Sophia walking out of the house, the look of utter heartbreak in her eyes. The more time passed, the more he realized the extent of the damage he had allowed his mother to cause. He had let her control his life, make his decisions, and ruin the one chance he had at happiness. Every day that he saw Chantel in his home, it reminded him of his betrayal. And every night, he dreamed of Sophia's absence, the void she had left behind. Months passed, and Marcus sank deeper into despair. Chantel began to make claims that she was pregnant, trying to bind Marcus to her. But Marcus wasn't interested. He couldn't bear the thought of starting a family with someone he didn't love, someone who had been forced into his life by his mother's manipulations. When Chantel's claims of pregnancy turned out to be false, it was the last straw for Marcus. Kathy, who had watched from the sidelines as her brother's life crumbled, could no longer stay silent. She had always been the quiet one, the peacekeeper. But now she saw how much Marcus was suffering. She saw how Miss Evelyn's control had destroyed everything Marcus had worked for, and how her mother's obsession had ruined her brother's happiness. It broke Kathy's heart to see Marcus like this, and she knew that it was time for her to speak up. In a rare moment of defiance, Kathy confronted their mother. She told Miss Evelyn that she had gone too far, that she had destroyed Marcus's life and driven away the one woman who truly loved him. Miss Evelyn at first was defensive, insisting that everything she had done was for Marcus's own good. But Kathy didn't back down. She told her mother the painful truth that Marcus was miserable, that Chantal was only in their lives because of her, and that Sophia had left because of her manipulations. Miss Evelyn, faced with the reality of what she had done, was initially furious with Kathy. But as the days passed, and she watched her son retreat further into his grief, she began to realize that Kathy was right. Marcus had been her entire world, and she had always believed that everything she did was to protect him. But in her quest to control his life, she had blinded herself to his needs, and ultimately, his happiness. She had pushed away the woman he loved, and replaced her with someone who only cared about his wealth. Miss Evelyn's health began to decline, a slow deterioration that left her bedridden. It was during this time that she had the space to reflect on her actions. Lying alone in her room, she thought about Marcus, about all the times she had reminded him of her sacrifices, and about how she had wielded her suffering as a weapon against him. She realized that she had held her love over him like a debt to be repaid, and in doing so, she had robbed him of the freedom to live his own life. One evening, in a rare moment of vulnerability, Miss Evelyn called Marcus to her bedside. Her voice, once so full of authority, was now weak and trembling. She told Marcus that she was sorry, that she had been wrong to control his life the way she had. For the first time, she admitted that her love for him had become twisted, that she had pushed him away from the one person who truly loved him. She asked for his forgiveness, though she knew it might be too late to mend the wounds she had caused. Marcus, though still hurt, sat by his mother's side and listened. It was the first time he had heard her apologize, the first time she had acknowledged her role in his unhappiness. He didn't know if he could ever truly forgive her, but hearing her admit her faults was a small comfort. It was a start, a small step toward healing. As Miss Evelyn's health continued to decline, Chantal, realizing that her hold on Marcus was slipping, began to fade into the background. Without Miss Evelyn's backing, she had no real claim to Marcus's life, and soon she disappeared entirely. Marcus, free of her and the toxic influence she had brought into his home, was left to pick up the pieces of his life. One day, years after Sophia had left, Marcus received a letter. It was from Sophia. In it, she explained that after leaving, she had moved abroad to start over. She had been heartbroken by what had happened, but she had needed to find her own happiness. What Marcus didn't know was that when Sophia had left, she had been pregnant. She hadn't known it at the time, but after the miscarriage and all the pain, she had discovered she was carrying their child. She had chosen not to tell him, not because she wanted to hurt him, but because she needed to protect herself and their child from the toxicity of his mother's influence. Sophia had given birth to a beautiful boy named Eli, who was now 8 years old. She had remarried and built a life for herself and their son, but she knew that Marcus deserved to know the truth. In the letter, she explained that Eli was a kind and smart boy, and though Marcus had missed the first years of his life, she wanted him to have the chance to know his son. Marcus, reading the letter, felt a mix of emotions. There was shock, sadness, but also hope. For the first time in years, he felt a glimmer of something good, a chance at redemption. He knew he could never undo the past, but maybe, just maybe, he could be a part of Eli's future. He made the decision to travel abroad to meet Sophia and Eli. It wasn't easy. The years of regret and the mistakes he had made weighed heavily on him. But this was his chance to make things right, not just for himself, but for his son. He wanted Eli to know that he was loved, even if their relationship had started in the shadow of so much pain. When Marcus finally met Eli, it was as if the years of suffering melted away. Eli was a bright and curious boy, with eyes that reminded Marcus so much of Sophia. The bond between them didn't form immediately, but over time, Marcus and Eli began to build a relationship. They played soccer together, took walks, and talked about everything from school to the stars in the sky. Sophia watched from a distance, grateful that Marcus was finally part of Eli's life. Though their relationship could never be the same, they had found a place of understanding. Sophia had moved on, and Marcus had found peace in knowing that his son would grow up knowing both his parents, even if they weren't together. As the years passed, Marcus learned to forgive himself and his mother. Miss Evelyn, in her final days, found some solace in knowing that Marcus was rebuilding his life, and though she could never undo the damage she had caused, her apology had allowed some healing to begin. Marcus's story is one of love, sacrifice, and betrayal, but ultimately, it is a story of redemption. He had lost so much, but in the end, he found something even more valuable, a second chance. And as Marcus stood on the hill, watching the sunset with Eli by his side, he realized something profound. Sometimes, the greatest love comes not from the people we think we owe the most, but from the ones we didn't even know we had. Marcus's shoe factory not only became one of the most successful businesses in Kingston, but it also funded scholarships for underprivileged children. The end. If this story moved you, make sure to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay connected for more stories like this one. Remember, sometimes the greatest battles we face are with the ones closest to us.